Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mishnapad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtotartha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayo Mishnapad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtotartha Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 30th day of October 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're beginning a new chapter today. Chapter 14, the three modes of material nature, on page 567. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Param Bhuyaha Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanam Uttamam Yajyatva Munayak Sarve Param Siddhim Itogataha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Padam Bhuyak Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajyatva Munayak Sarve Padam Siddhim Itogataha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Padam Bhuyak Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajyatva Munayak Sarve Padam Siddhim Itogataha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Padam Bhuyak Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajyatva Munayak Sarve Padam Siddhim Itogataha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Padam Bhuyak Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajyatva Munayak Sarve Padam Siddhim Itogataha. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Padam Bhuyak Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajyatva Munayak Sarve Padam Siddhim Itogataha. Anyone want to try it over here? Elsewhere? No? Okay. Go ahead. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Padam Bhuyak Pravakshyami Jnananam Jnanamuttamam Yajyatva Munayak Sarve Padam Siddhim Itogataha. Anyone online? Guess not. Word by word. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Param, transcendental, Bhuyaha, again, Pravakshyami, I shall speak, Jnananam, of all knowledge, Jnanam, knowledge, Uttamam, the Supreme, Yat, which, Gyatva, knowing, Muniyaha, the sages, Sarve, all, Param, transcendental, Siddhim, perfection, Itaha, from this world, Kataha, attained. Translation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. Purport. From the 7th chapter to the end of the 12th chapter, Sri Krishna in detail reveals the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the Lord Himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service. In the 13th chapter, it was clearly explained that by humbly developing knowledge, one may possibly be freed from material entanglement. It has also been explained that it is due to association with the modes of nature that the living entity is entangled in this material world. Now, in this chapter, the Supreme Personality explains what those modes of nature are, how they act, how they bind, and how one can transcend them and attain liberation. The knowledge explained in this chapter is proclaimed by the Supreme Lord to be superior to the knowledge given so far in other chapters. Okay, time out. Hare Krishna. Okay. By understanding this knowledge, various great sages attained perfection and transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord now explains the same knowledge in a better way. This knowledge is far, far superior to all other processes of knowledge thus far explained, and knowing this, many attain perfection. Thus it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection. Well, there's an inducement to really study it nicely. Okay, so this is a very encouraging. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. That's a very nice verse to quote in reference to this verse in purport. Because we're all born into darkness of ignorance. And especially in this age, we're very fortunate that we come in touch with the actual source of real knowledge by which we can perfect this human life and end the process of birth and death in this world. So Krishna is being very patiently, again saying, Parambuya, again I'm going to speak to you. This knowledge which is Uttamam knowledge, it is the supreme knowledge, he's saying. And knowing this, even though many great sages have achieved supreme perfection. So, the modes of nature have come up before in the Bhagavad Gita. You may recall in the 7th chapter, find out Krishna says, Daivi yesha gunamayi mama maya doratyaya mameva ye papadyante mayame tangtarantide. This is a very famous verse, often quoted. So he's saying there, Daivi gunamayi, this material world is in one sense divine because it's mine. It's my creation. Daivi gunamayi, composed of the different modes of the nature and how they're interacting very complexly. Mama maya, it's my maya. It's my energy that I manifest in this way because certain numbers of the living entities want to try to live independently from me. From the spiritual world, they come down and they have this place where they can become entangled in so many ways, but I'm always periodically coming in order to give them instruction on Dharma to attract those who are receptive to the message. So, one who surrenders unto me can easily cross beyond it. This is what he's saying in that important verse. But without doing that, it's impossible. Because what does guna mean? Guna means different things. It means quality, it means the modes of nature, and what's the third thing it means? A rope. A rope. So these modes of nature act as tight ropes to bind the conditioned soul to this material world, birth after birth, birth after birth after birth. So how to cut those ropes, how to transcend the modes of nature, that will be explained in this chapter distinctly. First will be a description of the modes, the different modes, and how they affect one. What does it mean to be in the mode of goodness, and the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, what the symptoms are, and so forth. So we can, it's kind of a doctor. First you have to have a nice diagnosis. So this is a diagnosis, all of these modes of nature. But we also have the remedy in this chapter as well. Okay. Text 2. Idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharm yamagataha sargepi no pajayante pralaye na vyatanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. Purport. After acquiring perfect transcendental knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becoming free from the repetition of birth and death. One does not, however, lose his identity as an individual soul. It is understood from Vedic literature that the liberated souls who have reached the transcendental planets of the spiritual sky always look to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, being engaged in his transcendental loving service. So even after liberation, the devotees do not lose their individual identities. Generally, in the material world, whatever knowledge we get is contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Knowledge which is not contaminated by the three modes of nature is called transcendental knowledge. As soon as one is situated in that transcendental knowledge, he is on the same platform as the Supreme Person. Those who have no knowledge of the spiritual sky hold that after being freed from the materialities of the material form, the spiritual identity becomes formless, without any variegatedness. However, just as there is material variegatedness in this world, in the spiritual world there is also variegatedness. Those in ignorance of this think that spiritual existence is opposed to material variety. But actually, in the spiritual sky, one attains a spiritual form. There are spiritual activities, and the spiritual situation is called devotional life. That atmosphere is said to be uncontaminated, and there one is equal in quality with the Supreme Lord. To obtain such knowledge, one must develop all the spiritual qualities. One who thus develops the spiritual qualities is not affected either by the creation or by the destruction of the material world. So, this is another verse. Krishna often does this at the beginning of the chapter. It's kind of an advertisement. You know, it's like, here's what you get if you really understand this knowledge. So keep reading, you know, don't stop. and you know, just what comes to mind is some of the famous verses in this chapter. At the end, Arjuna will ask a very pertinent question. How can I tell what are the symptoms or the characteristics of one who has transcended the modes of nature? And how does one transcend the modes of nature? And then near the very end of this chapter, we're going to get this key verse, Mam chayo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. By uninterrupted, unmotivated devotion to me, mam hi vibhichare bhakti avyabhichare, mam chayo vibhicharena bhakti mam chayo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitaitam. One transcends the modes of nature and comes to the Brahman platform. Now that Brahman platform doesn't mean that one stops devotional service, but it means that you transcend the modes of nature. You're in the permanent mode of goodness, or the mode of pure goodness. And in that mode means that you understand your spiritual body and you're engaged always in devotional service. So it all culminates in pure devotional service. But we're going to find some very graphic descriptions of the modes of nature and what their effects are. And then we can say, yeah, I can recognize that. Yeah, I used to, before I even knew anything about Krishna consciousness, on the weekends, you know, I used to just sleep till noon, you know, and go out, you know. Yeah, that's a mode of ignorance. That's a mode of ignorance. we can tell, and then it's good to know, because oh, wait a minute, this is, you know, I don't want to be affected by this. This seems to be the mode of passion. I want to stay in the mode of goodness. So, any questions on this verse? You have something?
Hare Krishna. Don't we always have the same quality as Krishna, but just not the same quantity? It's describing this as we have to acquire the same qualities.
One can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Yes, we do, but it's covered.
It's covered, right?
So it's understood. What's understood is that we actually manifest it. We're conscious of our qualitative equality to Krishna, but otherwise we're completely unconscious. You know, even though intrinsically we have it. Just like a person who, if you get ill, you know, if you get the flu or something. I mean, we know that hopefully we have the capacity to overcome the illness and regain our health. So that's in our nature, that's in our ability. But due to circumstances, we're not manifesting that, we're not experiencing it. So when you can experience that equality, moment to moment, and there's no more of this forgetting and becoming bewildered by the modes of nature, then that's the perfected state. But it's important to remember that we all have this original Siddha, what is called Siddha Swarup or Siddha Deha, you see? And this is right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the second canto. you'll find that there's kind of a table of contents there in the second canto, I think in the 10th chapter. And one of the subjects that the book will deal with is mukti. And so it gives a definition of mukti. And it's not this Mayavad idea of just losing your identity, and that's Prabhupada repeatedly mentions, and merging into the Brahman without any variety. See that word Vishesha? I think there's a... anyway, it's not in the verse here. But anyone, you have the pranam mantra, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Desha Tarine. Prabhupada is delivering us from the clutches of this philosophy that's based on nirvishesha, no details. That's the Mayavad. The ultimate perfection is to merge into Brahman, which is just the white light. There's no variety, you see? And you realize your, ultimate divinity, and you're happy, But you're not happy, because it's not our natural position. Prabhupada would always quote a verse in response to that idea. The prayers of the demigods for Krishna in the womb. When Krishna is at the beginning of the 10th canto, a few chapters in, Krishna takes birth, and as he's in the womb of Devaki, preparing to take birth, the demigods come and they offer prayers. They're kind of hidden away; no one can see them. But one of the prayers that's Prabhupada always quoted in this regard has to do precisely with this: that we cannot be satisfied with this nirvishesha, with this conception of simply being pure spirit with no personality, no activities, no form. You see? So it's because ye and ye ravindaksha vimuktimaninas tvayasta bhava avishuddha buddhaya aruha kritrena param palang tata patantyadho anadvita yushmarangriya. So besides the devotees, the verse or verses before this one speaks about the glories of the devotees, but there he says anye. Anye means others. Others besides the devotees, O lotus-eyed Lord, Anabindaksa Vimuktamaninas, they think they're liberated if they're able to, by great effort, kritrena. Sanskrit is such a wonderful language. Can't you just hear the difficulty? Kritrena, to try to transcend all of our conditioning in this world by our own efforts. I'm just going to go alone to the Himalayas. I'll sit there, I'll live off the leaves that drop from, and I'm going to overcome all of these urges, and control the mind and chant my mantra, Om, 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 Om. And, and some very few can do that, can actually, by force of will, become, perfected, so-called perfected. And so what happens? They rise up to the param, what is it? Aruha Kritrena Param Padam. The supreme situation, that's not Vaikuntha, but it's Brahman. It's Brahman. So, Param Padam. But then what's the next line? Tata Patantyado. They fall down again. Patanti means fallen, Patita Pavana. Patita is a different form of the word. Patanti is the verb. Patita is an adjective. Patita means fallen. Pavana means deliverer. How? By purification. You see, patita bhavana. This is often an epithet for Prabhupada or any great soul who preaches like. So, patantyado anadrita yushmat angriya, because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. And why are they averse? Because they're ultimately envious of Krishna. Envious of Krishna. They want to be God. If I can merge into the absolute truth, I'm on the same position as God. You see? But that's obviously the death knell for any bhakti. Anyone who thinks they're so but the others, those who take up the bhakti, if they actually achieve perfection, there's no temptation to come down. You're perfectly satisfied in your swarup, in your eternal rasa with Krishna, engaging in varieties of service in that rasa in the spiritual world. Bas, finished. Eternity. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. You see? You have a question.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
So when it says that we're the same in quality, the same as Krishna, like Krishna, like one of his qualities is that like he can create.
You can't create? You can cook. If you cook something, you've created.
Oh, okay. But I can create a...
No, you can't create a universe.
Entity.
No, sorry.
So yeah, how's like or what are his qualities compared to ours?
Yeah, the idea is that just like, so many times in the Bhagavad Gita and all the Shastra, we have this just as similarly. So a good analogy is the sun and the sunshine. So every ray of sunshine has a little bit of light and a little bit of heat. So in that sense, they have the same quality as the sun. Now the sun, has a quality of being able to, cause the thousands of tons of water to evaporate from the sea and then come and form the rivers. We can't do that, obviously. So, but the essential quality of being a person, of having desires, of having activities, that's what it's meant. That's what it's meant. Some of the where does a quality merge into a quality? If someone is so strong that he can lift 1,000 pounds and throw it 100 yards, and I can lift 10 pounds, do I have the same qualities? Not really, So it's not. If you get into the details of it, but the essential quality of being a person, having senses, having desires, having activities, and having the ability to love and be loved, that's the main thing. We have that, and Krishna has it. And that's why we can be satisfied, in the spiritual world, engaging in these loving activities with Krishna. Here, it's famous phrase, mortal phrase, perverted reflection, distorted reflection. We can have our loving relationships here, we can have our enjoyments here, but they're temporary and ultimately lead to misery. The misery being that we have to leave the body, which is no fun, and then take birth, which is also no fun. And then if you hang around, you'll be here for the annihilation. When fire and flood, the whole super fire and then flood. You want to, so ultimately it leads. It's a bad bargain for all the little fleeting pleasures, and some of them may last quite a while. You have a relationship. Oh, we were married for 40 years. Okay, but then she dies, or you die, or some other, or some disease happens. The person is no longer who they were before because there's all this dementia. I mean, all kinds of things happen in this world to spoil your little dream of imitating Krishna, and we know that. So better to train up to leave this body successfully and not come back.
Yeah, that answers my question. I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
If I can ask about impersonalist, if they attain the Supreme Personality, or if they are able to attain it, how they have an individual soul when they are in the spiritual sky, or they have I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. You can't go to the spiritual sky if you're an impersonalist. Yeah, the only ones that can go there are devotees who have actually recovered and purified themselves, so that their natural eternal siddha. This is another verse. This is a verse by Lord Chaitanya gives to Sanatana Goswami. Is nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhya kabunoi. Shavanadi Shuddha Chitte Kodaye Hudoi. So much is in that one verse. Nitya means eternal. Siddha, the eternal perfection of what? Krishna Prema. And that implies in your own specific, unique relationship. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema, Sadhya Kabunoi. In this context, sadhya means something that is artificially gained. You see? It's not something artificial, it's intrinsic to you. Siddha Krishna Sadhya Kabunoi. It's not brought from outside. Then how do we discover it? How do we experience it? Shavanadi Shuddha Chitte. By the purification of all of these unwanted desires and confusions and illusions that we now carry with us in our mind, birth after birth. So that has to be purified. How? Shavanadi. By the 9 process of devotional, beginning with hearing. Hearing, and then what's the next one? Chanting. So what do we got? Kirtan, right? Sankirtan, hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting. Chaito Darpana Marjanam. Marjana means to cleanse, You know, it's the whole process, just a cleansing process, which is very encouraging. It means we already have all the knowledge. The knowledge is there, but just like we forgot it. You know, just like when you get older, it's like, well, I know it's in there. I used to know that, you know. And then I'm at the point where what is that? What is that? And most of the time it finally comes, but but it's, you know, that's part of getting older, you know. But a whole material life is that. We've all forgotten, we've certainly forgotten our last birth, and what to speak of our original position in the spiritual world. So this process is a whole process of reminding us and training us to act on that basis of our real identity. You know, we're all servants. We're going to either serve Maya or we're going to serve Krishna. If you serve Maya, you think you're the boss, but you're not. You're serving Maya, and ultimately it leads to suffering, birth, death, old age, and disease. But if you serve Krishna, then you become free from that bondage. And even though you're still in the material world, you have that sense of liberation. You're not affected as much. You can much more easily tolerate the vicissitudes, you know, that word I remember from grade school. All the changes, things like that, of this material world. And which is invaluable, to be able to have that equipoise, you know, equipoise. No one knew that word when they started the book, so they would have equiposed. We had to finally fix it when we proofreading. Anyway, but so even the stages before you achieve perfection are so wonderful. You can actually rise above all of the madness and the illusion and the distress and the anxiety. You know, even way before you attain perfection. So, anyway, I think that's the best I can do with that. All right, so we did 2. Go to 3, right? Mama yone mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhavak sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. The total material substance, called Brahman, is the source of birth. And it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharat. The next verse is a very, which builds on this verse, is a very well-known verse. Purport: this is an explanation of the world. Everything that takes place is due to the combination of the Chaitra and Chaitragya. This is from the previous chapter. Can anyone tell me what those 2 words mean? Mahima. Yeah, and the field of activity is basically this body, you see. And it's not just one knower. There's 2 knowers. The body and the spirit soul. Here he's talking about the individual knower. This combination of material nature and the living entity is made possible by the Supreme God Himself. The Mahat Tattva is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation. And that total substance of the material cause, in which there are 3 modes of nature, is sometimes called Brahman. The Supreme Personality impregnates that total substance, and thus innumerable universes become possible. Now that impregnation, what's the form of the Lord that does that impregnation? Yeah, right in the corner there. We have the nice portrait of Mahavishnu. And by this glance, just by glancing, you know, he wakes up and he's glancing, and when he's sleeping there, and we're also in suspended animation within the body of Mahavishnu. It's not like we're dreaming. We're not dreaming. You know, we're just unconscious. But all the seeds of our karma and everything and our unfulfilled desires are still there in dormant form. And when we get impregnated into the universe, which is Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is there, you know, and Brahma gets manifested, and then gradually we take on our previous forms, and when we died, and we start again. And what form we take is also, you know, determined by our activities, and the karma is still there in a dormant form. So this is this, you know, this system of, you know, and the whole manifestation of the material world is taking place on one breath of Mahavishnu. You know, so I remember a lecture probably that sticks out. You can just imagine the caliber of this Mahavishnu. One breath, and that's the whole lifetime of Brahma, you know. So we've been doing this a long time. But this is our chance to get out of this dilemma. So, mama yoni, so this is like a yoni, this is like a womb. It's also created by Krishna, and it's the whole material energy. And this whole thing with the Mahatattva is like the whole aggregate of all the material energies. It's kind of the material elements have to be there, for our manifesting a body and all of the things that are going to happen. So that's part of the important part of the creation. Okay. Described as Brahman in Vedic literature. The Supreme Person impregnate that Brahman with the seeds of the living entities. The 24 elements, beginning from earth, water, fire, and air, are all material energy, and they constitute what is called Mahat Brahma, or the great Brahman, the material nature. As explained in the 7th chapter, beyond this there is another superior nature, the living entity. Into material nature, the superior nature is mixed by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thereafter all living entities are born of this material nature. The scorpion lays its eggs in the piles of rice, and sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of the rice. But the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they only seem to come out as products of material nature. Thus, every living entity, according to his past activities, has a different body created by this material nature, so that the entity can enjoy or suffer according to his past deeds. The Lord is the cause of all the manifestations of living entities in this material world. So this is a wonderful, explanation of how the world has come about and what all the variety is all about. And it gives us a real framework of knowledge which we can rely on. It's not at all possible to figure this out by some scientific method or investigation or speculation. That's why it's so important to hear from the authority. This we're hearing from Krishna, as explained by his pure devotee. And this knowledge forms the basis of our will, of our activities. The mind is a thinking, feeling, willing. So that thinking, which is especially in human life, we have the brain. We can learn something that will change completely how we will and how we feel. And if we can understand this philosophy and actually try to live it, it'll change. It's just a whole transformation of our life, into such a way that our activities are actually bringing us closer and closer to perfection. That's what we're looking for. There's always a Krishna conscious thing to do at every moment of our life. There's Maya there, and there's Krishna there. And more that we choose the Maya, the Krishna side, the more that Maya will release us from her grip, and there'll be less temptation. This is one of the great things, because vairagya is a very important principle. We're tied to this world by so much raga. Raga, there's kind of like ropes of attachment. But they can be purified by redirecting our attention, because the whole thing is attention. What are you curious about? What do you really want to inquire about? That's what determines our destiny. We have to become curious about Brahman. That's the first Vedanta Sutra. The first Tato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, therefore, that you're a human being, you should inquire into Brahman, not the stock market. The price of this, not where is it. But Brahman. What is Brahman? The source of everything. How did it all come about? Where did I come from? Who am I? And why am I suffering? So that's the beginning of it all. And the fact that we're now in chapter 14, means that we're inquiring every time we read a purport, and we're always getting good answers here. So now, text 4 is an extremely important verse. It's worth memorizing if you're into that. Here Krishna says, I am the seed-giving father of everyone. I am everyone's father. Sarva yonisha kaunteya murtayak sambhavanti yaha tasam brahma mahadjonir aham bija pradakpita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. In this verse, purport, in this verse it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the original father of all living entities. The living entities are combinations of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but on every planet, even on the highest where Brahma is situated. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth there are living entities, even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother, material nature, and Krishna's seed-giving process. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. So this is a very important verse, that Krishna is the seed-giving father. Now the fact that he's the father also means that he knows that we have a relationship with him. And he's our best wishing friend. Remember the end of the 5th chapter, he says this. Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantam richati. So the proverb, he christened this verse the peace formula. Because the last line says, gyatva shantam richati, one who knows the truth of this verse attains to peace. So the first statement is, Bhoktaram yajnatapasam. I am the ultimate enjoyer of all austerities and sacrifices. Why? Because I am the Lord of every universe. Sarva loka maheshwaram, every planet. I'm ultimately the Lord. So that's, it's a tremendous position to be in. Who are we in virtue of that? But then Krishna says something very important. He says, Suridam sarvabhutanam. I am the best will-wishing friend, and he never gives up that well-wishingness of every living entity. Every living entity. Suridam sarvabhutanam. One who knows this attains to peace. Now just imagine how wonderful it is to know that God is your friend. He is your best well-wishing friend. He's the most powerful. He's the most beautiful. He's the most, wise and everything. And he's our well-wishing friend. So wouldn't it behoove us that, well, if that's really true, then let me take his advice about how I should lead my life. What I should do, what I should not do. Here's the danger in, again and again, too much involvement of the senses, control the senses. Turn your attention to me, glorify me. Sacrifice means you sacrifice your own pleasure for the pleasure of the Lord. Because ultimately, that will put you in the situation where at every moment you're experiencing the transcendental pleasure of service to Krishna. Every moment, which is inconceivable now. Now we have long, time, the material life, there's so much work and things, I'm not enjoying myself, it's such an austerity, I don't know if I can do it, all right, the weekend is here, okay, let's have some fun, But that's the life of degradation for the soul. So now, at every day we could wake up and chant Hare Krishna, come to the temple, see the deities, serve, sacrifice, and we're getting closer to Krishna. He sees exactly what we're doing, and he says, "Oh, look, they're trying to hear about me. Okay, let me give them more taste for that. Let me reveal, more." The same books that we've been reading, you'll as Prabhupada says, it's never dull, it's never hackneyed, it's always ever fresh. You can always pick up some new nectar. So Sarva Yonishika Murtiyak Sambhavandiya. This is the Brahma. Brahma means the great. The great conglomeration of all the material energies, the Mahatattva, the Pradhan, unmanifested material energies, That's what I impregnate by my glance. This Mahavishnu, inconceivably large, and it wakes up and he impregnates everything. And then Brahma has the headache, or should I say headaches, he's got 4 heads, to try to, have the progeny manifest, And you read in the 2nd canto, it doesn't go smoothly at first, The Kumaras, he has high hopes for them, and they say, no, we're not going to do it, And they're so powerful mystics that they keep themselves 6 years old, so there's no question of marriage, But they're super smart. They're personifications of knowledge. They have their own parampara. But they're not Prajapatis. So he has... Anyway, you read about it. There's various false starts, and it's like... Anyway, but that's how this gradually all of the unmanifest living beings come out of Mahavishnu, and they have another chance to take up devotional service. So we've been doing this. We don't know how long we've been doing this. Oh, here comes I mean, in Kali Yuga itself just gets worse and worse. It's kind of scary now. I mean, in a few days, we're going to have Prabhupada disappear and say that's really what's important on that day. But the rest of the country is going to have its election, and who knows what's going to happen after that. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm not even going to worry. But whatever it is, there's always a disaster in this world. Either our own personal disaster. Oh my God, I got terminal this and that. Now what am I going to do? So devotees think, oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. The time is now, And I've seen so many devotees get really serious, the last few months. And oftentimes, you take shelter of Mayapur or Vrindavan, So, and we're confident. Yes, this life doesn't end at death. It's just a change of body, taking off an old coat. We learn that in the second chapter. So, if you're really convinced of that, then death doesn't hold the kind of terror that it does for people who have no inkling about that. You can imagine everything I built up, all my relationships, everything is going to be ended. I don't know what's coming. Who are those dogs? It comes like that. So just by what we're doing already, we're going to avoid that. But we're on our way back home, back to God. So any questions on this verse? This is such an important verse. Krishna is our eternal Father, and He's our eternal well-wisher. And He's, He empowered His representative Prabhupada to create these books and these temples, and the mantra and everything is here. And so we should take advantage of it and join Krishna back in His eternal Leela. All right, should we go on? Now he's going to start talking about the modes of nature. Sattvam rajas tama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadhanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. Material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. Purport. The living entity, because he is transcendental, has nothing to do with this material nature. Still, because he has become conditioned by the material world, he is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature. Because living entities have different kinds of bodies in terms of the different aspects of nature, they are induced to act according to that nature. This is the cause of the varieties of happiness and distress. So, this is now we're going to learn about these modes of nature. And as we read this, we'll find, I remember, what the mode of ignorance was like. I got some of these symptoms: procrastination, too much sleep, intoxication, and also, the anger and these type of things is also part of the mode of nature. I was thinking one time, I was remembering, I used to hang out in New York, Manhattan. And certain parts of Manhattan, you shouldn't go there. The gangs are, they're in charge there and everything. And it's like the mode of ignorance is like they're ready to immediately beat you up if you're on their turf. I mean that kind of, you know what I mean? I mean, for what? Because that's part of the Maya. This is my turf, right? This is my domain. And that's what we've done. We try to usurp part of Krishna's creation for our own exclusive use and pleasure. And just think of the life of the demons. What did Hiranyakashipu do? I'll perform these austerities. I'm going to get these powers. I'll take over the universe. And he did it. Everyone was bowing down to him. Even Narada Muni said, I had to bow down to him. Everyone except Shiva and Vishnu and Brahma. But was he happy? No. He freaked out when his little son was chanting Hare Krishna. What's that? He became... But we see that manifest, in this world. People, and how do you become peaceful? The perfect example in this Sadhu Sangashtaka, the Tikshava. And I think of Prahlad, he's a perfect example. Who was the Sadhu? What's the quality of the Sadhu? Tikshava, Karunika, Suridak, Sarvadehinam, Ajata Shatravakshanta, Sadhavak Sadhabhushana. So the first symptom, and then the next verse is a companion verse, is that he's tolerant, to Tikshava, and merciful. Even tolerant, also merciful. Because if you're going to preach, you got to be tolerant, but you got to be merciful. And Suridak Sarvadehinam, the best friend of every living entity, not just human beings. You don't want to harm any little bug comes onto the temple floor. Okay, it's suspicious if they get killed by getting stepped on by a devotee, but still, take them out, put them into the garden. Some poor little spider or something, whatever. I don't know about the cockroaches. That's their special category. We won't talk about it. Especially if they're in the kitchen. So, to the Suridak Sarvadehin, Ajata Shatavad has no enmity toward anyone. Can you imagine it? That's so, because you're not competing with them. You're not trying to exploit them, and you feel protected by Krishna. Suridak Sarvadehin, Gyatva Suridak Sarvadehinam, Titikshava, Karunitak, Suridak Sarvadehinam, Ajatashakabak Shanta, Sadhavak Sadhabhushanam. These are like the ornaments of a sadhu, the ornament of the character of a sadhu. And they're peaceful. And how do you get that way? Kapila Dev speaking, Lord Kapila Dev, an incarnation of Krishna. Maya Ananyena Bhakti, Maya Ananyeva Kurvanti, Bhaktim. Maya Ananyena Bhakti. Yeah. Mayananyena bhavinam bhaktim kurvanti ye dvidham matkate chakta karmanas chakta swajana bandhava. So this is how you get to be a sadhu, is by performing this undeviating devotional service to Krishna. Mayananyena bhavena bhaktim with great determination. And then what's the symptom of that? Matkate chakta karmanas. For my sake, she'll give up any mayak activity. Matkate chakta karmanas chakta swajana bandhava. And even the relations with their friends and family, if they are impediments to bhakti. You see, they can also be integrated, as we see in wonderful families like Gaurkeshava. But still, that's the idea. So that's and one can feel, as we can see in the life of Prahlad and the life of the devotees in general, they feel Krishna's protection, they feel his friendship, and they feel his love at every step of their life. And so they're completely peaceful and natural, And we see the 6 Goswamis, they came, 3 of them, from super rich to as austere as you can be, especially Raghunath Das. But all of the Goswamis, I just visualize, there's Sanatan and Rupa and the others wandering in Vrindavan. They don't even have their own tree to sleep under. They find a different tree each night and they sleep under that tree. And they have minimum clothes, coping, whatever, And how do they eat? Well, they go to beg from a couple of houses, Otherwise, what are they doing? Spending all day writing, and meeting at Radha Damodar and then sharing. Jiva, check out this verse. You can imagine how ecstatic they are. Diversions. Materially, they're as poor as you can possibly be, but in actuality, spiritually, they're so wealthy. What is it? Gopi bhavada samratabdadhali kallola magno mahor. They describe, they had just to cope in, and they gave up all of their wealth and influence and everything. But they were periodically, again and again, diving in the nectar ocean of Krishna's relationships with the gopis, meditating and writing about that and experiencing it. So who's really rich? Bezos or the 6 Goswamis? Musk? Heaven help us. Heaven help us. The richest man in the world. He looked like the poorest man to me. Oh my God. I'm the richest man, and I'll buy the election. Everyone can get $1 million if they win. Unbelievable. All right, it's late, so we have to adjourn. So let's share with a little poem. Let's see, something that is just completely uplifting. All right, this is one of my all-time favorites about the holy name. holy names of Radha and Krishna. Radheti nama navasundara sidu mugdam. Krishneti nama madhuradutagara dugdham. Savakshanam surabhiraga himena ramyam kritmata daiva pibame rasane chudarte. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes, such as the name of Radha, by whom all three worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet, such as the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling, fragrant spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then in every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. And that's all about Hare Krishna mantra. That was Raghunath Das Goswami. Okay, so we'll adjourn now, and we'll have our kirtan and see the beautiful forms of Radha Giri Hari. And we'll resume next week. Now, Monday is something special? No, Tuesday. Tuesday is Prabhupada's disappearance day. But this Friday is Govardhan Puja, so we should all try to convene for that. That'll be very special. This Friday means 2 days from now. And yes, okay. Verse number 6. Right? Yes. Okay.